What's going on, guys? It's Dashdrop here. This is officially my first ever video on this channel, which will feature a lot of programming, a lot of nerdy shit, a lot of math, a lot of drawing. You know what I mean. So, in this video, I'm gonna be creating a game in C++, which is gonna be top down, it's gonna be a shooter game, it's gonna be really fucking awesome, I swear to God. I guess you can see this as a tutorial because I'm basically gonna show you everything I'm gonna do. And I think I'm not gonna be coding on this game while I'm not recording. So yeah, I guess this would be a let's play, but for programming. And technically it's gonna be a let's play too because I gotta test the game to know that it's working. So without further ado, let's fucking go. I'm gonna name this game Top Down YouTube Game. Very short title. And first we obviously need a main file. Without a main file you can't do very much. Yes you can, but I like to include it anyway because I'm gonna have a separate file and a class called game, which is basically gonna be the whole engine. So what I want to do here is remove the pragma shit because I like to be very descriptive with my code. Okay, so we have our basic class structure here, and I'm gonna add another one for the entity. And you know what? Let me just let's just copy it. No. We're not being lazy. We're not being lazy. No copy paste. I know it's in a programmer's nature to copy paste the code, but no. No. We don't do that here. Oh. No, you gotta come with us, buddy. There we go. Remove the spaces. Clean up. Clean up on aisle 6. Pravatke. I guess we could include our game here. Just so we got the actual main file good to go. So I'm gonna create a new instance of the game, or a new instance of the game class, I should rather say. Obviously we're gonna need a default constructor, so I'm just gonna put that down there. And I'm gonna need a run, I'm gonna need a stop, an initiate, and an update. Here I'm gonna start implementing all of these things. So we got the stop, we've got the init, and last but not least we've got the update. So, what else? I think I'm actually gonna wait with the entity until I have my actual game window showing. Before I talked about that I'm not gonna do any copy paste in my code, well, I was lying! No, I'm not gonna copy anything, but I'm actually gonna take a look at my previously created game, and I'm just gonna basically borrow a few things, you know? So I know we're gonna need some, because I'm gonna be making this game with the SDL2 library, so I'm gonna have to include this in my project, and I'm actually gonna make sure I'm on all configurations, because if I don't, then when I'm gonna run this game in release, I'm gonna have to do all of this over again. So I'm not gonna actually show you how to install SDL2. I might do that in another video, and if I post that, I'm gonna be linking it up in the corner here. But anyway, I'm just gonna show you basically how I include this, and not where I downloaded it from, and you know what I mean. So we're gonna need some includes here for the actual SDL2, and then SDL2 image, because a game can't be complete without images and sprite sheets and shit like that. So make sure you include those. I also have the true type font library right here, but I'm actually gonna wait with that because I'm not sure if I'm gonna include actual text in the game yet, so I'm just gonna stick with these two for now. We'll be fine, we can add things later. And now we're gonna go into the exact same folders here, but I'm gonna include the library x64 because that's the platform I'm working with. x64. And also, just a really important reminder here, if you guys are including these, to actually be able to build and compile the game, with SDL2, you are gonna have to add them to your environment variables. So if you go to environment variables, go down to path, edit. Right here, you're gonna have to click new, click browse, and then you're gonna have to find the exact same folders as before. You have to include the libraries for the environment, for basically just for the computer to be able to find what you're trying to run. So you want to go into library and click on the same platform that you chose before. So for me it's x64, but I already have that included right here, as you can see, both of them. Very good. Actually all three for the TrueType font. TrueType font as well. So I'm just gonna exit out of all of this, not this one because we're not down here. What we now need to do is go into the linker, go into input, and on additional dependencies you have to put down a little string of code. So we're gonna need the SDL2 library, we're gonna need the SDL2 main.library and SDL2 underscore image.library. So yeah, let's just apply this and try to include some things here. So I'm gonna need the SDL header library and the SDL image. But let's try to add I think we need a window, right? Okay, so that works fine. I can actually show you what I'm looking at here. This is my old game text file. So basically I'm just gonna make sure I include the necessary things here. I hope you guys don't think I'm cheating, because I mean it's my own code. I'm gonna need an event. Alright, I'm actually gonna make a new class called render window, which is gonna be the window. So let's do that right now. And we're also gonna need to include the necessary SDL libraries here. But that's the render window, which we also have to include in the actual game engine. There we go. And that fixes that. Just to get rid of this bug, I might just put it down up here. So we're gonna have game. Alright, I had to take a little break there, but I am back and I am ready to keep coding. The next step is initiating my window. And to do that, I have a bunch of shit going on. Oh, excuse me. Oh, actually, all I do is initiate it with the window title. Let me actually open this up in Notepad++, because it's just gonna be so much easier to read. Let me show y'all. There we go, look at that. We got color-coded shit going on. Fancy stuff, you know, indentation looks alright. And we can also do this. This is actually what I did before. There we go. Look at that. Look at that. And by the way, it's not gonna be like this the whole video. I'm not gonna just copy down shit I've written before. This is just to get the actual like window going, so we can get working on the actual game. Because I mean, this is the boring stuff, just initializing the SDL2 library. Yeah, you know, let's just go with the flow. So I'm gonna need a window and a renderer. I will add a default constructor for this class. Let's initialize that in the CPP file. I'm gonna need some type of way to get the actual window, and I'm also gonna want to get the renderer. Get renderer. That can be a constant because we don't have to change anything inside the actual function. In case you guys are wondering, we want to return our renderer. By the way, if you want to, you can do this renderer if you want to. I mean, that's I think it's just fine doing it like this. And we're gonna return our window. Alright, so back to the initialization. So I'm just gonna create a new window, and in here we're gonna need a window title. So what I'll do is create a constant char window title. I'm gonna need to add these parameters to the actual class header thingy here. Nope, that's the wrong one. There we go. And by the way, if you want to, you can add the actual name here too. Or you can just do this, like the const char pointer. But the problem is, if you're gonna create a new render window, so if I were to go render window, wind, and then add some parameters, this is all you would see. You wouldn't actually like know what to put here. So if I were to share this code with another developer, let them do whatever they want to, I want them to be able to basically be able to use my code without having to dig deep into what it actually does. So I tend to leave the title here as well, even if it's a bit more clean, to just keep it like this with the data type. And that's just because if I want to make a render window, I can see here what type of parameter or parameters I need to feed. So I can add a window and write my game, because I know that I need to add a title there. So yeah, that's just a quick little tip for you right there. So I want to create with the window title, and yeah, we're gonna need a bunch of shit here, so... and this, I guess I could set it to centered. But yeah, I'm gonna make this a... Actually, I think I want to make this... This is probably gonna be super cursed, but I'm actually gonna make this like just a square. We'll see how that turns out. I want the SDL window to be shown. And just to clean things up, I can add these guys to their own lines. Just like this. Keep it a bit tidier. Maybe do this too. You can do whatever you want to. But yeah, I'm gonna do the same thing for the renderer. But I'm gonna do create renderer instead of window. With the window that we just initialized right here. -1 because of this right here. I don't know what the hell this does, to be honest. I just go with the flow. But I want the renderer to be accelerated, and I also want it to prevent VSync. Alright, looking good. I will do the same thing and put these guys on their own separate lines. And, you know, you can add some comments. I would also always recommend adding comments so you know what this actually does, especially if you're following this, well, quote-unquote tutorial, just to know if you want to look back at the code and actually learn something from this, just add some comments. So I could say like initialize window. This is gonna be super descriptive comments, I know, it's like crazy. Initialize renderer with necessary flags. I don't know, something like that. Center on launch. I think that's fine enough. So I'm gonna want a void function called render where I take in an entity, because the entities are what I'm gonna render basically. I am doing a great job of explaining this, I know. I am sorry. But yeah. And here we want to do a bunch of shit. So I'm gonna create a rectangle, SDL rectangle. I'm gonna name this source and set this to the current frame of the entity. Entity get current frame. That's another function I'm gonna create, don't worry. Add another rectangle called destination, just like that. If you don't want this this warning, I guess you could just add these guys. I'm thinking if I should make the entity animated or like a static sprite, like just one single picture. I know I want to rotate the actual entity, so I'm just going to be moving it up and down, left and right, and then basically have the angle follow the mouse, like the cursor. And then I'm also going to be shooting towards the cursor. So I don't think I want to animate the entity, so I'm going to skip that. So what I want to do is basically just set the destination parameters. I'm going to have an entity x times scale, because I'm gonna want to scale this somehow. And then I'm gonna do the same thing for y, entity.y times scale. And then the width is gonna be the source width, not the entity width, times scale. And the height is gonna be the exact same thing right there. Let's just add these variables to the entity class just to basically clean it up a bit. I'm actually gonna keep these in the public because I do want to modify them just like this. I don't want to have to like put entity.getX or setX or move, or I am gonna have a move function too, because otherwise I would just have to do entity.x plus equals 10 and then entity.y plus equals 10. Instead, I want to be able to just do entity move like 10 and 10 for the x and y positions. But that's gonna be in the later step. Might come in a later video, I'm not sure yet. What I do want to do now is create a new variable called scale, which is gonna be I'm actually gonna keep this int. I don't think I want to be that specific with my scaling. So yeah, just make an int scale right there, and in the actual like default constructor, I guess you could call it, I want to add an initialization of scale, set it to 1. So basically the default scale is just going to be 1, so the ratio is going to be 1 to 1. So the current frame is actually going to be a rectangle. It's going to be an SDL rectangle, and it's going to be called current frame. Let's create a new entity constructor. I'm gonna need some parameters for this, but let's just keep it like that for now. I know I'm gonna need a texture, so let's just add that right away. Entity texture. I think I'm actually gonna keep the rotation angle a float, because I think if I make it an integer, there aren't gonna be as many points to rotate, because there are not gonna be decimals. So I'm actually gonna make this a float. So I'm gonna name this rotation angle, just like that. And right, we need the actual function. SDL rect get current frame. Make it constant because we're not gonna change anything in the function. There we go. And just return current frame. Now this is giving me an error because it's a constant, so I think I should be able to remove these guys and be fine. Yep, and that clears that up. Perfect. And last but not least, we want to add a render copy X. And the reason I'm using X and not the standard render copy is because I am gonna add the rotation to the actual rendering. So I want to use our renderer. I want to use the texture. So I need to create another function right here. SDL texture, get texture, just like that. Sorry, this needs to be a pointer. There we go, looking good. So we got the texture there. Our next parameter is gonna be the source, destination, and here we're gonna add another function to the entity actually. Get rotation angle, float, get rotation angle. Also make this constant, we're not changing anything in the actual function. Oh my god. Whew, my fucking kitchen fan just turned off and scared the shit out of me. My bad. Get rotation angle, constant, return rotation angle. Alright, I think that's enough functions in the entity class for now. Null pointer and SDL flip none, because we don't want to flip this bad boy. So basically we've got the whole render thing going. Now we actually need to add the display function. So let's add a void display, render window display. There we go. And I wonder if I could actually make this a constant. I didn't try before. I am gonna try now. If you don't try, you don't know. So render present, and we're gonna pass the renderer. And that works just fine as constant, so I'm gonna keep it like that. And one other thing here that's worth mentioning is this right here, because this is the like default constructor, but we're actually passing a parameter that's being used by another like thing inside the class. I'm actually gonna want to put this as explicit. And there's like a lot of reading to do about explicit and whether or not to use it. So we've got a few flags here. We've got our window and our renderer initialized. So I think that's what we need to actually get something showing in our game. So what we're gonna need to do is initialize our window. And here I could actually hard code the title. I'm just gonna do YouTube game, super cool. And the event is basically just gonna be like initialized to nothing. And that fixes our errors, or well, warnings I guess. It's not a true error. And I could put these guys on the same line just like that. Alright, looking good. So in our initialize function I guess, we want to put in a few if statements, or it's actually just one if statement, but it's an or if statement. So I'm gonna check if the initialization of the video, just like that, is greater than 0, or if it could not initialize a PNG image, because that's what we're gonna use for our sprites, at least what I'm gonna use. Then I can just print stdc out, and we can just put like an error caused during init break, and then print the error. So SDL get error, just like that. And obviously we need to include the IO stream, otherwise we wouldn't be able to print anything using C++. You could always use the actual like printf, because that's from C, but I haven't used this a whole lot, and I don't know. I like stdc out. It actually adds at least some more C++ to the code, and that's where I'm studying. So, but yeah, if you have an icon, you can always do SDL set window icon, and then pass in like the window get window, and then load the image using the path. So I could set this to like, I don't know, assets / icon.png or something, but I don't have an icon. I'm not gonna bother with that right now. So yeah, that was actually all I had to do for the initialize function. In the update is where everything's gonna happen. That's where we're gonna put all of our shit, basically, the entire like game loop. But it's actually the run function that I'm using in the main. So we have to basically put everything here for the main to be able to do something with our game. And with our stop, I'm actually gonna fix that later. So in our update, I like to add a bool at the top named isRunning. Set this to true because it's gonna be running from the start. And basically just make a while loop. So while is running. So while the game is running, we want to do basically everything here. We're gonna have to clear the window. That's also a function I forgot to add, my bad. Void clear. I think we can make that constant as well. Add a render window clear. And then I'm actually gonna do render clear. And what we want to clear is the renderer. So basically what we're gonna do is we're gonna start by clearing everything on the screen. And then we're gonna basically perform some type of function or code or whatever. We're gonna render it out, and then we're gonna clear, and then render and clear, and render and clear. So that's basically what's gonna be in the game loop. Alright, I could add some more, I guess, like the pull events for the key. SDL pull event for the event that we created for the class. And here we want to check if the key is SDLK escape, just like that. Then we obviously want to set is running to false and break. So this will jump out of this entire while loop. It will go right down here, and it will no longer run this because is running is equal to false. But before I add more code in between these guys, I'm gonna add the stop function. And first of all, I'm actually gonna add the window.display down here. So this is the actual like loop. So between these guys is where everything is gonna happen for the entire game. So we're gonna stop the game right there, and that's a function I'm gonna fix later, and then obviously return. I think this is a good point to like test that our window is actually working, because right now we've written a lot of code, so it's always good to check if it's actually working as it's intended to. And just to get rid of that warning, I'm gonna add the constructor right here. Basically just initialize a few things, set the entity texture to null pointer, because we don't have a texture if we're just initializing it as an empty entity. I'm gonna set the current frame. Let's just do that. And then set the rotation angle to 0.0f, because we're not gonna rotate it anything. Alright, that looks good. So without further ado, let's try to build this shit and see if we get any errors. We might get some error, we might not. Yep, one failed. Okay, I think it's actually the arguments for the main function. Could it be that simple? Let me take a look. Yeah, that's probably it. This has to be int argc and char pointer argv array. That's probably what that was. Let's try to build it this time. There we go. Succeeded. Fucking love it. So the build works. Let's actually take a look at how the window looks. There we go. This is way too big to play with.
That's what she said.
So I am gonna fix the render window size. Let me actually set this to, let's do 960 by 960. That might look alright. Maybe 840? I'm actually gonna go 840. So, we've got our game running. Now all we have to do is get some entities, I guess. I actually want to add a new folder. Call this like assets. And in this I'm gonna add one more folder. You can call it whatever you want. So, in our repository, we can see we have this folder, assets. We've got our PNG. And this is where I want to put my entity. I have this this player now. You can actually see it if I refresh. There it is right there, our player. So what I want to do now is create our very first entity. But to do that, I'm gonna have to include a few more parameters for the entity. So I'm gonna have an explicit entity here. And I'm not gonna have a name, but I am gonna have a texture. So I want to pass in a texture and a width, a height. Yeah, I think I'll just start by doing that. So we've got our constructor. Let's initialize it right here. Entity. We've got a SDL texture path. So the texture, the width, sorry, and wow, there we go. Jesus. And here we're gonna add texture becomes texture. No, it's actually called entity texture. Great. Because I was actually gonna say, like, make sure you keep the names separate from the parameters, just to avoid any confusion. But the width and the height is actually gonna be initialized with the current frame, if I'm not mistaken. So the current frame is gonna take 4 parameters. It's gonna be the X and the Y. And then it's gonna be the width and the height. And I have one more parameter, and that is the rotation angle. And obviously we're not gonna want to rotate the entity anything when we first spawn it in. So, all right, the X and the Y is uninitialized. That's correct. So I want to set X to 0 and Y to 0. There we go. Because I'm gonna be moving the player a lot, I might be scaling it, I will be rotating it, and I might want to be using it in separate functions. So instead of having to pass in the player as a parameter every time, I'm gonna create a new entity in the actual class. So I'm gonna say entity player, just like that, because the player is a very big part of the actual game. So I'll say player, and here I can make sure it's an entity. I wonder if I actually have to do that. I might not have to do that actually, but I do need another function called load texture. So I'm gonna set SDL texture pointer, load texture, and this is gonna be a const char texture path. There we go. And in here I can actually create a new texture called SDL texture, new texture, and then just load it as an image. I want to load it from our renderer with the texture path as parameter. And then I can return the new texture. And actually what I could do here to simplify this a bit more is basically just return this. So I don't have to create a new variable and then return it. I can just return the loaded image. So alright, there we go. Now in our player we can set window load texture, and in here I can do assets, png, and player.png. So this is the size of my entity. I'm just using a regular image right now because I might want to sit down in another video and go through like how I make my entities in Photoshop, and basically it's gonna be pixel art, and That might get a little clustery, I suppose. I am gonna want a constant uint8 pointer called key states. And this is what I'm gonna use to actually move the player, because this right here is basically more or less for single key presses. If you want to hold W or ASD to move the character, you're gonna want to use the key states, which is a uint8 thing basically. So I'm gonna have to initialize that as well. So I'm gonna do key states. The SDL get keyboard state of null pointer. Now down here I can do if key states, my bad, if key states, let's read in SDLKW, then I can actually do player y minus equals. Let's actually add a movement speed here. So I'll do an int move speed is 2 right there. So I'm just gonna add the rest of these. Alright, there we go. So I would highly recommend that you put these in their own function, just to basically keep the update function itself cleaner. I might just go ahead and do that right now actually. Void update player movement. I'll put them right there. Now I am gonna have to move the movement speed variable in this function, but that's okay because we're only gonna be using it in here to move the player. If you're gonna be moving other things around, you might want to set the movement speed variable as a member variable of the actual like class. So you don't have to like copy paste it everywhere. So there's one movement speed here and one here and one here. You know, just keep one singular movement speed variable. And now I obviously have to call the function here. Update player movement. Otherwise the game won't know what to do with the player. And to actually show the player, I'm gonna have to do render and pass in the player entity. I could put these next to each other because they basically belong together. There we go. Now if I run this, there's our player, but he is not moving around. Okay, I think I know why. It's because I'm using SDLK instead of SDL scan code. So basically replace all of these. There we go. Now our player should be moving around. Yeah, look at that. That looks amazing. I think I'm actually done with the game right now. I don't think I want to add anything else. I think this will actually have to do for episode number 1 of Let's Code, I guess. I want to thank you guys so much for watching and maybe coding along if you did. And hopefully you learned something or at least had fun enjoying the video, you know. I don't fucking know. Did you enjoy the video? Please let me know. Or let me know what I could do better. I guess I will see you in the next tutorial / code along / game devlog video. Yeah, this is great. Yeah. Thank you so much. Bye bye.